everyone, welcome to another Ultimate Fighter episode review. This for Season 30, Episode 6, titled We Meet Again. So we've got a fair chunk to go through, and I'm not just talking about me, ha ha ha, and yeah, let's just get to it. So we begin, and Juliana Pena is taking her team up the Calico Basin Trail because it's a place that she likes to go to relax sometimes. She brings her 4-year-old daughter along with her, and yeah, all the other fighters go up there and they have a pretty fun time. And it is around this time that we do get a clip of the sort of fight that's happening in a way, because the fighters in this fight for this episode are Claire Guthrie from Team Nunes versus Juliana Miller from Team Pena, and they fought before. It was the last fight that either of them had before coming up to the show, which Claire won. And we got to see like some remnants of that fight. So obviously, yeah, this is the rematch fight episode that we're getting, hence the episode being titled We Meet Again. Still, it was quite nice to see it, and another thing I did enjoy seeing as well was the coach's opinions on the first fight, because Juliana definitely thought that her fighter, Juliana Miller, see how fucking hard it is. Pena thought that her fighter Miller absolutely won the fight, even though Claire was ruled the winner at the time. But the interesting thing to me is usually when it comes to the Ultimate Fighter and people who are on opposite teams who had previous fights, usually they'll be more biased towards their fighter, but even Nunes didn't think that Claire won, and Claire was on her team, and I thought that was actually a really smart move, especially when it came to the training, which I'll just get into now to get out of the way. Very wrestling focused for both of them. One mistake that Miller, I almost said Juliana, that Miller kept making in the first initial fight was that she kept clasping around for takedowns but wasn't really fully going for them, and Claire was defending a bit too well. So the main focus of her training was to focus specifically on the takedowns, getting Claire against the cage, trying to pull her down, trying to take her down, keep her down, ground and pound her to get the finish. Whereas Claire's plan was basically just to defend the takedowns, because Nunes sort of knew that that's something that Miller would work on, so she prepped Claire appropriately for it. Really helped her with the takedown defense as best she could, and I think she did a pretty good job as well, again, just being a great coach, as is Pena, and I love the fact that Nunes didn't really think that Claire won that first fight either. Just really smart foresight from her. We then go to the backgrounds and video packages, and we start with Claire, who we see weighing herself fairly early on in the episode, and she's weighing at 142 pounds, which is not good. It's about 16 pounds over the non-title fight limit for a flyweight, but it does lead into her taking her diet quite seriously and her going into her background, because she actually has an accounting and finance degree in business, and she's actually really intelligent, and she likes crunching numbers, and it's part of how she takes care of her body and her health so much. And yeah, I actually quite enjoy that sort of little fact. You know, not really many fighters have that and use it as a way to bolster their fighting career, but she was an accountant for 7 years before she started fighting, and she still does accounting in her spare time, so goddamn really smart as Claire. And we find out that she was I don't remember where she said she was born, but she trains in Colorado, and I don't remember exactly where in Colorado she trains out of, but yeah, still really nice to get that bit of background information from her. And yeah, she has a boyfriend as well. That's about all I can remember. She did also say that while she was smart, she was quite aggressive as a kid and got into a lot of sports fairly early on, especially baseball and basketball. She was a very, very sporty little one, and then she got an accounting degree, and now she's back to being a fighter. Very interesting how back and forth that went, but I did like it. Next we go to the youngest fighter in this entire season, and the opponent for Claire, Juliana Miller, who opens up about her history. She starts with talking with a couple of the other girls from Team Pena, and she talks to Helen Peralta about how she wanted a hug from her, and Helen thought she was faking it. But then Juliana turns out was being genuine about it, and Helen gave her a hug, which I thought was quite nice. But yeah, Juliana is 25, the youngest, about a year, maybe 2 years younger than Claire. And we find out about Juliana's background. She really only has her grandmother as family. She recently got out of a toxic relationship. She grew up pretty poor and didn't have a lot going for her. I think part of it was because, I don't remember if she said as much, but she's half Brazilian, half American. But she identifies more as American because she was born in America. But the only safe thing I can tell you is that she loves her grandma, and her grandma is fucking amazing. I don't remember what she said her grandma's name was, but we all need an awesome old lady like that in our lives. But yeah, Juliana was fairly sporting, and she likes to do extreme sort of sports stuff when she's not, when she's training. She likes to train minutes on the beach. She likes to ride her skateboard. She trains out of elevation fighting. She throws axes as well. She's a very busy person, like physically and athletically, and yeah, again, very, very stark contrast to Claire Guthrie, I think, but I do still really like that this is the information we get from things like this, as it does give a lot of insight into their personalities. And I will admit, I didn't like Juliana Miller that much in the last episode, but seeing a lot of her backgrounds, it did make me feel sympathy for her, and I do apologise if I came off as too much of a dick in my last episode review. I just didn't like her accusations towards Bobby, and, you know, thinking that he was betraying them. But yeah, she does have reason, like solid, justifiable reason to be a bit suspicious of him. So I do fully understand it now. Next, we almost get to the fight because we have to talk about Claire's weight. So she weighed in 142 pounds when we first see her weigh in. When she gets to the scales, Juliana makes the scales fairly well. I think she's 126, which is the cap. And when Claire gets on there, she's weighing 127. Oh dear. She then takes her clothes off and they get the tail up, 126 and a half. Oh dear. And then the rule kicks in that if you can't make the weight even after being naked, then you have an hour to shed the extra weight. So she spends pretty much like that entire hour in the personalised sauna bag tent thing that they have, and gets back on the scales and is a quarter of a pound over. Like less than a quarter of a pound. And I thought, they should have just let her fight. Like, less than a quarter of a pound is kind of bullshit. But they did have to stick to the rules, so they did the last thing that they could do, which is they had to cut off some of Claire's hair, which actually did do it. She was 126 after they cut her hair off, so yeah, it was a bit dramatic, and I was very scared we weren't going to see this fight, but I'm so glad we did, and it gives me such great joy to get into the fight itself, so let's do that. We then get into, obviously, the fight itself, and both girls are just absolutely swinging for each other. Juliana is looking for a jab early, and she's using her head movement quite well as she's landing it, but Claire is using her good head movement as well, countering with some really sharp boxing. There's a good moment during the opening 30 seconds where Claire actually lands a brutal leg kick that does sort of wobble Juliana a little bit, but Juliana manages to close the distance, try and get the clinch, but Claire is a lot better in the clinch. She's turning it around, she's landing a lot of body shots, landing a lot of knees from the clinch as well. And Juliana is landing quite well too, but yeah, Claire's just got the much clearer advantage in that situation, and I think she even gets a takedown in round 1 at some point. But Juliana's able to get out of it quite easily, and the two are just like moving and trading quite well back and forth. Claire is putting her punches a bit, she's putting her work together better than Juliana is. Juliana's still landing quite well, like she's landing the jab nicely, not following up a lot with it, but she is using it to keep Claire away, and she's moving ahead really well as she's throwing the jab, and it's really putting Claire off at first, but Claire does start to catch on to it, and does eventually, go the distance in round 1, obviously. So, yeah, Claire is utilising her striking quite well, and I give round 1 to Claire. I think her defense was a little bit better. Juliana was not closing the distance enough for my liking, but goddamn, when these two were exchanging, it was absolute fire. I loved the dirty boxing between them. Claire had the advantage in it, but Juliana was outlanding. Well, she was landing as well as she could to get out of it, and she did a little better than people think, but I still give round 1 to Juliana. Sorry, that's Claire. We then get to round 2, and Claire opens with a nasty looking front kick, and then a barrage of punches, and really badly damages Juliana from it, even knocks her down, and I thought she was going to get a finish at this point, but Juliana managed to keep her composure and managed to get back up. They clinch together again at some point, and I wish I could remember more of the fight because it was really, really great. But yeah, they have another clinch situation going on, and Juliana lands some good knees. Claire lands some really, really good knees. But Juliana starts finding her rhythm within like 3 minutes left of this second round. She's throwing her jab way better, she's following up way better, throwing a lot more leg kicks now, which was something I think she was hesitant to do in round 1, considering that she was almost knocked down with one from Claire. So the fact that she's actually throwing more and landing them quite well, following up on the combos, is really, really good. And she gets a huge takedown out of Claire too, to close off round 2, and it's a very good round for Juliana, but goddamn, just a really great back and forth fight. Whenever they're again together in the close quarters, both are landing quite well. Claire's landing really good, but she's not landing as clean as she was in round 1, and I give round 2 to Juliana. Really, really good work from both of them, and you would think that they would give us a third round. Well, luckily it does. So round 1 goes to Claire, round 2 goes to Juliana. We get our third and final round, and it's a lot more one-sided, sadly. Claire does get a takedown pretty early on, but Juliana is able to escape out of it, and she gets a nasty looking Kimura, but Claire keeps rolling through with it, Juliana keeps rolling with it. There's like 4 times where this happens, and she's still holding onto it. And she uses it to just really keep Claire pinned down. Just keeps her on her back, smothers her, stays on top of her, lands some really good ground pound at points, is throwing up a good some more good submission attempts. Isn't really able to land much out of it. Even though she was in a bad spot at first, because I thought like she was dumped on her head pretty early when Claire landed the initial takedown. But as the round goes on, and indeed the rest of the fight goes on, not really a lot changes, not really much changes about the fight. I think Juliana goes for an arm triangle at some point, goes for a rear naked choke at some point. Claire does eventually manage to get back up, and she counters a takedown into a guillotine, but doesn't get both legs up, and Juliana is able to take the back, land some good grounded pounds, and Claire's struggling to get back up, and Juliana pushes her foot against the cage and uses it to bounce back into another rear naked choke attempt, but not enough time to finish it, and they go the distance. So, Juliana wins by unanimous decision. I think it's a split decision at most, but I do still think she won, especially taking round 3 like that. The fight was really good. Right, this fight was really, really, really good. Definitely the best one of the season so far. I wish I could have remembered more about it. I wasn't super happy about the ending, though. Well, specifically the last round, I thought it was way too one-sided in favour of Juliana, but the first 2 rounds were phenomenal. I remember, like, this is something Dana touches upon as well, between rounds 2 and 3. Juliana's, like, not even on a stool. She's standing up. She's ready for the 3rd round. And I'm really glad she got it, because it made Dana happy, made me happy. We got a 3rd round out of this. But even though the 3rd round was not as great as the first 2, this was still a really, really good fight. And looking forward to the next one. I think the next one is a heavyweight fight between Jordan Hederman from Team Pena versus Chandler Cole, or Cole Chandler. It's Chandler something from Team Nunes, and Chandler is the one who, in the last episode, had the trouble with his arm. So hopefully he'll be 100% going into the fight against Jordan. But that's what we'll find out for the next episode, which will be, obviously, reviewed next week. And that'll about do it for this review. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the stream last night as well, PBW vs ABW. It was a mental manic stream, and I had my good friend Mr. X co-commentating with me again, so that was a lot of fun. I will see you all tomorrow for Music of the Week. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow, if not Friday at the latest. And then Friday night for the return of Sunset Overdrive, where we tackle the mystery of the Moyle Rig. And I'll see you all most likely for that. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye-bye.